Okay, tonight we are going to do an adding and subtracting decimals review. You have been adding and subtracting for quite some time, but we're going to throw in some decimals and make sure that you understand some of the basic requirements when we're adding and subtracting. So your learning goal for this evening is I will fluently add and subtract decimal numbers. Your vocabulary is sum, which is the answer to an addition problem, difference, the difference between two numbers found by subtracting them, and annexing, which is adding zeros when necessary in a subtraction or even an addition problem you're going to see here in a few minutes. So go ahead and pause the video, write your lesson, the learning goal, and the vocabulary down, and then we will move on from there. All right, for adding decimals, when adding and actually subtracting decimals, the very first thing that you need to remember is that you always will line the decimals up in your problem. This is a non-negotiable. We have talked about this in class. Those non-negotiables means those are those things that there's really no argument or no question about. It's an absolute have to. So when you are adding, subtracting, you're always lining them up. When we get to multiplication and division, you're going to see that we are going to shake that up a little bit. But for now, I need you to think lining up the decimals for adding and subtracting. So there are going to be times that the numbers don't have the same number of digits. So don't let that confuse you. So line them up regardless. And then I'm going to show you how we're going to annex zeros. I have a little tip that I've used in the past with some students. If you have trouble keeping your numbers lined up neatly, I want you to turn your notebook paper sideways and use the columns. Put one digit in each column, even a decimal in each column, and you're going to find that everything is laid out very nice and neatly, and you can annex zeros. Just trust me on that. Give it a try. If you're having some trouble and your answers aren't coming out correctly, give it a try. Trust me, it really does work. And if you do that, just tell me tomorrow. I'm really interested to see if anybody gives that a go and see if that goes for you. All right, so an example that we're going to use is 34 and 567 thousandths plus 23 and 2/10. So notice that these numbers do not have the same number of digits, so we're going to annex zeros to make up for this. So we start from the right, and we're always working our way to the left, like normal addition. So I put 34 and 567 thousandths on top, plus 23 and 2/10 on the bottom. And notice in blue, I made those a different color so that they would stand out. I annexed two zeros. So I now have 3 digits behind the decimal. You're always going to want the same number of digits behind the decimal, especially when we're subtracting. So when I did my addition, this number would read 57 and 767 thousandths. All right, I want you to go to your journal, do these two math problems. Look at 51 there on question number 2. There's no decimal. I want you to think about where that decimal might go. Go ahead and pause and do these two. And then we're going to move to subtracting, and then I'm going to do all of the problems together at once at the end. All right, subtracting decimals, the most important thing is you're going to need to make sure that the largest value is always the number on top. That can be confusing if you have a smaller value number that has more digits. So you're always going to look at the whole number. Whichever number has the largest whole number is the number on top. So you'll often annex zeros when subtracting. So here's an example. Annex as many zeros necessary so you have the same number of digits in both numbers. So if you see, I have 145 and 1/10 minus 13 and 257 thousandths. So notice that the bottom number, although it has more digits, is still smaller than 145 and 1/10. So please don't get confused and think the more the digits, the higher the value. So what I needed to do, and here again I did it in blue, was I annexed 2 zeros. So I now have 3 digits behind each decimal. You cannot simply bring the 57 down and just call it a day. You have to annex zeros and do normal subtraction with borrowing. So that is another non-negotiable. You have to put the zeros and then do your borrowing. And don't just bring the 57 down and think that that is the answer, because that's not going to work. So I'm going to give you a couple problems here to try. So we have 45 and 23 hundredths minus 14 and 13 hundredths, 78 and 9 tenths minus 42 and 36 hundredths. So go ahead and stop, do those, and then we're going to go over all of these problems together and see how we did. All right, our first problem was 456 and 7 tenths plus 13.946. All right, notice up here, I'm going to go ahead and annex 2 zeros. So now I have 3 digits behind each one. So I have 6, 4, 7 and 9 is 16, 1 plus 6 is 7, plus 3, 10, 1 and 5 is 6, plus 1 is 7, and 4. So here I am, right here, importantly, bringing the decimals straight down. So 470 and 646 thousandths. See if that's what you got on that one. All right, my next problem. 51 is a whole number. I'm going to go ahead and write down my bottom number. Okay. We've talked in class, if we have a whole number, we need to assume the decimal is right behind it. So here I'm actually annexing 3 zeros because there are 3 digits here. So when I do my adding, I have 1, 8, 7, 3, and 5. And then bring this guy down, 53 and 781 thousandths. Okay, let's go ahead and check your subtraction. We have 45.23 minus 14.13. This is going to be a really good time for me to make a suggestion. Always check your sign, because you know if you're given work in class, they're going to mix this up, and I often have people add when they should subtract and subtract when they should add. So make sure that you always check to see what they're asking you to do. All right, 3 from 3, we have 0. 2 minus 1 is 1. 5 minus 4 is 1. 4 minus 1 is 3. And then bring this decimal down. 31 and 1 tenth. And then our last one, I have 78.9 minus 42.36. Okay, here we cannot just bring this 6 down. Not going to happen. We've got to go up here and annex a 0 because we need to borrow. So I'm going to do my normal subtraction that we've learned a long time ago. This is going to become an 8. That allows me to bring this guy over, so I now have a 10. 10 minus 6 is 4. 8 minus 3 is 5. 8 minus 2 is 6. 7 minus 4 is 3. And then bring your decimal down. 36 and 54 hundredths. So see how you did on those. If you have any problems or questions, I want you to star those. Okay, we're going to wrap this up and see how you did. If you're finding that you may be making little errors along the way, I'll be showing you how to use Digital Root in class to check your answers. It's an awesome way of checking your work. So our motto in this next learning standard is do your work, check your work. And when we check our work, we can pretty much be self-assured that we're not going to get any of the problems wrong. So I'm really going to be honest about checking, making sure we know, are we subtracting, are we adding, and just really brushing up on those adding and subtracting skills without using our fingers and all of that good stuff. So hope you did well on this, and we will go over this tomorrow, and have a great night.